is the We Knew the Moon podcast, where we love all things empath, spiritual, witchy, unexplained, and spooky. Hosted by me, Dee Safier, co-founder of the Goddess Temple Twickenham, and joined by lots of special guests. Hi everyone, this is We Knew the Moon and my name is Dee, and here we like to talk about all things empath, spiritual, witchy, woo-woo, unexplained and spooky. And today I've got OG We Knew the Mooner again, Tracey Pretty. Hello.
Hi. Hi everyone.
Tracey owns the Hare and the Moon shop on Church Street in Twickenham and also co-founded the Goddess Temple Twickenham with me. We'll put all the links in the show notes, but you can check us out at goddesstempletwickenham.org to see all of our events, our guided meditations, workshops, etc. And this is the official podcast of the Goddess Temple. Love having Tracey. I love you when you join us because, you know, we started this together, didn't we?
We did start this podcast together, and although it feels like such a long time ago, it really wasn't. I remember sitting in the garden with you during lockdown. It was like our little lockdown project, which
it was.
I'm so proud it's grown. You've grown it into this thing now. Dee's just played me her new theme tune music. Sadly, I can't be on all the podcasts and be part of the project anymore, but I'm so excited when I get invited back.
You have a permanent open invitation. You know this. If you want to be able to watch this episode and all other episodes in season 4 as a video to get our priceless reactions and so forth, and also the videos are unedited, so you get to see all of our bloopers, sign up for any amount to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/We Knew the Moon. Again, the link will be in the show notes. So Tracey,
I just out my Doctor Who mug.
Yes,
my Doctor Who mug, which I always have a cup of tea when we record and usually don't put makeup on. So if you do subscribe to the video, you get to see me with my new mug. And I've attempted to put makeup on this time, but it is very hot today.
Well, if you want to see how gorgeous Tracey looks, then sign up to our Patreon, any amount. And I have my coconut latte from Hare on Staines Road near Twickenham Green. Fucking love it. Tracey, we talked about spirituality and Christianity and so forth last week. We had a very fun, lively debate about Doreen Virtue. But today you are presenting a topic to me, and I'm really excited about this one because obviously I know what it is already. But why don't you tell everyone, what are you going to be telling me about today?
Today I'm going to be doing spell work. So today I want to break down some of the stereotypes of spell practice. It's something that Dee and I have talked about before and actually said, oh no, we don't do that. Like, we don't practice spells. I own a lot of spell books, but I don't read them. I have or had, prior to my studyings and learnings, quite a strong stereotypical vision of what a spell would be, and completely denied it and turned my back on it because I was in fear of it, really, and it seemed very unfamiliar to me. And so today I just want to break down what a spell is and maybe some barriers that we all have on this really old, beautiful practice of spell work. So what is a spell? And if you want to do a spell, how would you go about doing it? The do's and don'ts of spell work as well, because there are a few rules of practice. Like anything in spirituality, there are a few laws of the universe.
Good to know them so that you can decide if you want to break them.
Yes, exactly. And just to remove, I guess, the fear of a spell. Can it go wrong? Maybe perhaps you're already doing them already without knowing it.
I suspect most people are doing some kind of spell, whether they know it or not. And I think this will be so interesting because I know from talking to people or whatever, one of their biggest fears is that they're going to like accidentally summon a demon or something, right?
Even smudging causes a lot of fear of doing it wrong, attracting the wrong spirit, or, you know, causing some sort of damage to the energy in your environment. So let's have a little chat about if that's possible. And if it happens, what you can do about it, etc., etc. And this subject, D, I mean, there's big chunky books on spell work and huge courses on spells. So I am today going to just touch, I would say, the surface of breaking down what it is. So it might be a two-parter. see how we get on.
Great to have a little intro into the topic. So let's go.
When researching spell work, I tried to research. I know you love an interesting fact, Dee. I know you love some like trivia as to spell practice. Look at your face lighting up. And it's so hard to find any interesting trivia because it is a serious practice, spell work. It's been taken seriously throughout centuries. So there isn't any kind of fun things that I can find to tell you. The only thing I found was that I think about 4 or 5 years ago in America, it came out in the BBC News as well. The Witches of America joined forces to create a spell against Donald Trump. Dated 2017, America's witches, at the stroke of midnight on a Friday, all joined forces. There was over 10,000 of them. Coined a hashtag magic resistance to cast a spell to basically hex, banish, and we'll talk a bit more about that, Donald Trump. That was the only fun thing that I could really find of spell practice in trivia, because every time you look it up, it's really serious stuff that's been taken seriously for centuries. I mean, you've got Harry Potter, but even he has some serious, and it was noted in this article as well. Some saw the ritual as actually a prayer, and we'll go into that later because we touched last episode, didn't we, about Christianity and spiritualism, and the prayer actually something quite spiritual. Some people said that joining forces like this was against the rules of practice because the spell shouldn't include another person without their permission. And, you know, there's the law of three, which we will go back on as well, that you get what you put out there and it'll come back to you.
Well, fun fact.
Have you got a fun fact?
Yes. And I hope I'm not treading on your toes and you weren't going to talk about this, but this isn't the only case of kind of witches getting involved in politics, shall we say? Because Dion Fortune, she was supposedly the lead on the resistance against Nazi forces. And so she and her associates would regularly battle on the spiritual plane against the Nazis. So, yeah.
So this shows the point of spell practice just being something that is carried out, needless to say, for centuries. It may have changed from time to time as we've seen religion be introduced. We talked about Christianity in our last episode and the banishment of witches. So the association of spell work was a very positive, powerful practice back in pagan times. Then, thanks to the church, it was seen, and we're talking Western world here, it was seen as like a very negative, feared practice. And we're now in today's society, a bit toing and froing.
All over the place, yeah.
So I just want to, again, break down exactly, is it practice or is it a bad practice to do spell work?
I just want to point out, you obviously have a gorgeous spiritual gift shop, and I sometimes do days in there, and you sell spell kits. So check out the website. She does online deliveries. The different type of people that look at those spell kits and buy them is really fascinating, isn't it? It's not just like gothy, witchy looking people. It's literally absolutely anyone that picks them up and are interested and buy them.
And the reason we sell spell kits instead of actually made spell jars, again, I'll go into that because, again, it's another misconceived of my truth of why we only sell them to make. But whether you believe in spells, whether you practice them, whether you think they're right or wrong, it is undeniable to acknowledge that they have played a really important role in our society and our cultures for centuries. And they have transitioned through history, through all areas of the world, to where we are today. So there isn't a place on this planet or a religion on this planet or a person on this planet that has not practiced in some shape or form a spell of some sort. So in ancient Mediterranean world, in Egypt, but it wasn't called Egypt back then, they practiced magic for countermeasures. So they would protect against black magic. So it was almost like a protection. They were doing magic to protect against magic, as it were. So to protect against evil and dark forces. So they weren't opposed to magic, but they were opposed to dark magic, and they used white light magic to counteract it. In Roman times, they interpreted the behavior of birds as spell work. So maybe that's transition today of like, we have crows and ravens and owls, doves, robins. Birds are very spiritual and totem animals that are strongly associated with gods, goddesses, deities.
Messages from the angels.
Feathers, angels, exactly. So in Roman times, they interpreted the behavior of birds as a spell. So if the crows were behaving a bit weird, they saw that as spell practice.
The crows performing a spell on you?
I don't know the ins and outs, but they interpreted the behavior of the birds as some sort of spell.
Evidence of spell work going on.
Evidence, that was their equivalent of a spell, like reading the birds, basically. Whether they thought that the birds were casting the spell or someone had casted a spell on the bird, or they were, I don't know, but it was their thing, the birds. In Europe, we talk about this a lot. Celtic connections, pagan beliefs, pre-Christianity, even witches, they were known as the healers. And so their spell practice, they would use land and the elements. We're talking herbs here, we're talking air, fire, water, and earth and spirit. And they used their spell practice as healing magic. So it was strongly associated with healing, doctor practice, witches in...
Yeah. We've got an episode on cunning folk in season 3, which covers a lot about that.
Yes, you're starting to get the picture here that wherever you are, spell work was medieval Europe also had things in terms of, even in Christian times, charms were carried around. You mentioned this in your last episode. Prayers, divination, talismans, all of these little symbols that have been charged with energy. Technically, it's a spell. So it's transitioned through all religions as well. Buddhism, Hinduism, they all have rituals and use symbols. And again, I'm going to question, just put it out there. I don't know if there's an answer. Does this constitute as a spell?
Yeah, definitely. Because like you said, I always say, I don't really do spell work. But then when you think about what could be a spell, any kind of ritual, any kind of prayer, any kind of appeal to the gods, goddesses, deities, elementals, whatever, could be a spell, right?
Yeah. Even yoga, the principle of like connecting your inner body and redirecting energy. I'm going to break down the definition of a spell, but essentially, if you're redirecting energy or you're trying to point energy in a direction, or you're using some sort of tool, like shamans, they had magical techniques as well. You're using some sort of tool and you're redirecting energy. Is that a spell? So what is a spell? And when I read this, I was like, yeah, obvious, but I'm going to state the obvious here. So the word spell means to write letters in a correct sequence. And so spell derives from that meaning of doing something in a sequence. So if you think about what you're doing, you're doing it in a specific order. And a spell is essentially the redirection of energy through supernatural powers. You're not creating energy. You're not creating some special potion here that causes a reaction. Spell work is essentially you are redirecting energy from one form to another. And we've talked about this so many times. I find it so hard to explain, but I'm going to give it another go as to what is energy, because we have our science practice, which we love, and then we have our spiritual practice. And I think I've cracked the perfect explanation. We'll see.
You know that I'm going to just squeal in excitement if it combines both, right?
Well, science sees energy as something that can be connected within a physical way. So light or heat, it's the reaction of atoms which cause a specific reaction to give off light, heat, and all the other things. Even movement is a reaction in the body. We are...
Kinetic energy.
It's a physical thing you can see happening. And in science land, they see that as energy, the transference of one thing to another. It's not created, it doesn't disappear, it just evolves into different forms. And I thought, well, that's kind of energy, but spiritual practice sees it as a bit different. When we talk about energy, especially when we talk about negative energy or positive energy, do we mean light and heat, or do we mean something different? And in spiritual practice, the word energy is basically like your vibration. It's your aura. It's your personal spiritual energy that you are giving off to the world. And not just you, although humans and things with life force are clearly special because they have a soul, but everything is giving off energy, kind of in a sciencey way, but slightly different, because the universe and spiritual world, we feel it as a high vibration, positive energy, or a low vibration, negative energy. So the same but different day. And so for the part of spell practice, I feel like it combines the two a little bit, because when I was watching Disney growing up, I used to associate a spell with, you know, the witch and her cauldron. She'd get loads of crazy ass ingredients like the toe of a frog and a wing of a raven and some weird mushrooms. She'd put it in and the cauldron would bubble and it would turn green and all the stuff would react, and it creates the energy that we just talked about. And then the potion would be given to the princess and then she'd fall asleep. That was my association of a spell. Now, does that mean then that when you're cooking up a meal and you're putting all your ingredients together and you're making a soup, does that mean that that's a spell? Or does it mean that when people are creating medicine, because essentially that evil witch was basically making, what's that drug, Dee, that they put, naughty people put in your...
Rehypnol.
Basically making rehypnol.
She really was. Probably another reason why I was never allowed to watch Disney as a child. Also, while we're speaking on the topic, princes out there, or whoever, don't kiss someone who's asleep. There's such a thing as consent.
Yes. So was that witch who was like making rehypnol, which is essentially what scientists do with making medicine when they're putting all their chemicals and their compounds together to make paracetamol, antibiotics. Is that also a spell? Because that's how it's depicted to us. Things reacting in science world to create another thing, which then has an effect on us. And so I carried on reading and thinking about it. And I realized that no, because the essential ingredient and the law of the universe, particularly in spiritual practice, is that a spell only works if it contains you, spirit, your energy, your soul, whatever you want to call it, your consciousness, your subconsciousness, your life force, your chi, your prana. A spell in spiritual world only works because of the intention that you put in it.
But then, like a kitchen witch would argue that cooking is a spell because they are putting their intent in.
Okay, so there's your key difference. As to cooking because it's Friday night and you've got to feed your family and you're just like reading it, then no, it's not a spell. If you're, like you say, a kitchen witch and you're making a soup to heal someone or to make someone happy or to whatever your intentions, if you're putting something in it from soul space, you're putting your life force into it, you're manifesting an intention into it, then it's a spell.
Oh, I love this.
So just to dissect it, the universe has spiritual elements, i.e. spirit, us, our subconscious. It has material elements, physical stuff we use for a spell. And it has our consciousness, our thought process as well. So think subconscious or spirit or soul, think material stuff, physical you, intuitive, heart, fate, spell, soul you, and then think consciousness, brain, thought you. It has those three things. And spell work works on the concept that everything, whether it be spiritual, whether it be material, whether it be human consciousness or consciousness of other things, animals, trees, everything is linked together, webbed together, connected, and has this universal order. Everything is one. And so in spell practice, the idea is that you're just jiggling it around a bit. So if you think of the air in the room, it's not me and you have a void space between us. We have molecules, we have air in between us. So in spell practice, really, what you'd be doing is moving stuff around. You'd be moving that air. So you'd be moving something, you're redirecting energy, you're redirecting stuff based on this theory that everything's linked, everything has a pattern, everything has an order, and you're rearranging it a little bit and you're just rejiggling stuff. And that's the power of a spell. So to anyone that is saying, oh, you know, it's all hocus pocus, or is it because of the actual ingredients that you put in there, or is it your intent that you put in there, or is it luck, coincidence, chance? Is it a deity or God that makes that spell happen?
Is it all of those things?
Everything. It's everything that you put into it that the universe has to offer, which constitutes a spell. And if you think that it's got all of that good stuff in it, especially with the power of yourself and the manifestation and the intent of this is going to happen, and I'll talk about law of attraction in a minute, then you can kind of see why maybe it's not so hocus pocus. Maybe there is actually more into spell work, and it makes a lot more sense to why spells work and why it could actually be true that you make yourself a little money bag charm, and it's got all the ingredients in it to direct that energy and give that energy. You're putting your intent into it, and you're doing it at the right time that the universe has to offer, and you're redirecting energy and flow and everything that's connected to create an outcome.
And all of those things, preparing your ritual, your spell, actually performing it, having, for example, a physical thing like a pouch at the end of it that you carry around, whatever, they're all with the intent of focusing your mind on your desired outcome, right?
Totally.
Keeping you on track, which is another big, a big element of it, I think, is just anchoring you and focusing you on your goal.
Definitely. So this is where it comes in of like, you might think you're not practicing spell work because you don't have the cauldron or the spell book, but are you doing other rituals or other practices which could possibly be seen as a spell?
Yeah. Definitely in the Middle Ages. Would you have been convicted as a witch?
Here's the thing. So all the physical stuff that you can use in your spell practice, and I'll go into that, is nothing without the prayer or setting the intention on it, putting your means out to the universe of what you want, manifesting it, and having a clear intention of your outcome. It won't work unless you do that. So spells cannot be separated, and this is possibly why science doesn't resonate with them too much. They see chemical reactions and different energy and like physical things you can see. Whereas in spiritual practice, we're very used to recognizing that actually sometimes it's not seen. It's very hard to explain, but it's definitely felt and understood. And so you hold on to that idea of maybe that's what a spell is. It's not something that can be explained. It's just felt and understood. So how would you do a spell? Well, first of all, you need to have a little think about your outcome. Very important. And have a little think about how you're going to achieve that outcome. So one of the things in practice of spell work is that you can call upon support, whether that be a deity like the moon or a god or goddess, spirit world. You can ask for help basically ask guidance and support to redirect this energy. Angel healing for one.
Elements, if deities and angels aren't your thing, the elements.
Or the moon or the planets, anything that you work with, call upon for support and have a little think about if that's the right thing to call upon for support. Now, you can also use symbols. We're doing a workshop with sigils. So you can write sigils. You can use gestures. So this idea of Harry Potter with his wand is not so Disney. It's actually a thing where you can wave a wand, you can do gestures, you can draw symbols in your spell practice. You can use letters, you can use words, you can use physical objects, crystals, aromas, sacred herbs, plants. There is nothing really that you cannot use to incorporate in your spell practice. I can't think of a single thing that would be wrong to use, Dee.
I can think of some ingredients that might be frowned upon. If you were like the tears of a newborn child, well, I suppose that'd be easy to get actually because they cry all the fucking time, so you could very ethically source that. But like the blood of a virgin or...
Yeah, I mean, generally in practice, spell work should not cause harm to another. That's one of the main rules. I'll go through them. You should not cause harm to another. And that is actually meant really with when you're casting your spell, it shouldn't really involve another without their permission. And it's sometimes very hard, for instance, if you're doing a love spell, you're definitely like involving another. So you shouldn't involve another person without asking for their permission. And in terms of like doing harm to someone, I mean, if your core ingredients are causing death of something, then that, yeah.
Unless the virgin voluntarily offers you their blood. And it's a consensual agreement.
All has to be consensual and cause no harm.
And preferably in a sterile environment. I want to get off this topic. Carry on. Why am I talking about this?
Some really questionable ingredients. I mean, go with your intuition, but just keep in mind that it should not cause the harm of another. So no killing things to put into practice.
Well, that's even, I suppose people have different interpretations of that, right? I like to stay away. I'm vegetarian, and I stay away from using animal products in any of my, actually in all walks of my life. I try to avoid it, right? But there are exceptions. Like, for example, on my altar right now, I have a whole pile, which I'll show you later, Tracey, of my bearded dragon's skin that he shed. Now, I know that that's ethically sourced, but I wouldn't go out there and buy, the skin of an animal, because I don't know. But like, other people are not vegetarian and they don't have that criteria.
Right, Dean, this is again like another controversial thing of hold what's true to you. So personally, I just shared there in my practice, it would involve no killing of anything with a consciousness, basically. So plants is not included, but anything with a consciousness or life force, like an animal or human. So it's what you resonate with. But I personally think modern spell books in Western society, and I'm holding one next to me, there's no ingredients in there that involves animal products. So I don't know whether we're moving away from that a little bit.
There's conflicting ideas about the ingredients and the sources of them and so forth, whether to use animal products, etc. But even what you said about causing no harm with your spell, I know that's what one group of people might believe, but other people are totally okay with it, right? Like you said, you're going to talk about hexes and curses.
Yes, I am. So I'll go into that a little bit later. I mean, they're okay with doing it, but are they okay with the results after? I'll break it down.
Yeah, well, you and I, full disclosure, we don't practice that kind of stuff. We're not very much okay with it. We know other people do. Even like love spells, you said, they come under the category of it influencing someone else, and therefore is it right? And so a lot of people think do love spells, but not on a specific person. Like if you want to do a love spell, you would say like, please let me find love with my right person.
Well, this is where spell practice can be quite specialized. So you've got to know what you're doing and really think about how you're projecting it, because it is very easy to cross that boundary. Like you mentioned, the love spell, it's so easy to accidentally involve someone.
Yeah.
Or not involve someone. You want to remove something from your life, and then we're talking hexes. So yeah, you have to think very carefully when doing your ritual, your spell work, of not only the outcome, but the words and things that you're going to use in it.
I suppose this is where the fear comes in, right? Because people are like, oh, I'm going to get it wrong. I better stay away from it.
But essentially, it has to come from good place, good heartfelt place. So I truly believe that if your intentions are good and, it comes from good space, good source, then if you do accidentally word it slightly different, what you're projecting to the universe they understand. It's your intentions. That's the importance of the spell. So whether you say it wrong or get an ingredient wrong, like the intentions behind it are so important. And going back to the ingredients as well, the source of the ingredients, your intentions behind getting them and where you source them from need to be from a good place. So an example of this is like my crystal shop. We're getting people stealing crystals. I've had to put a sign up saying stolen crystals have the opposite effect. Because when you're using something with energy like that, and you're taking it from a bad place, i.e. theft, then you're automatically putting bad energy into something which is supposed to be giving you good energy. And so that bad energy, that bad source, that bad intent, that naughty behaviour of stealing has reversed what should be a healing thing.
Don't steal your crystals, people. The worst thing to steal.
Also the same, if you did want to use animal produce, did the animal have a good life? Did its life get ended fairly? has it been treated well? Is it from good source? We do this with our sage, we do this with our Palo Santo. Any of these plants, any of these things, are they organic? Are you happy? There's no right or wrong, but are you happy that your ingredients are from good place? And if you are, then that's the tick.
Great.
So you set your intention, you set your energy as well. So what time do you want to do your spell? Do you want to do it under a particular moon phase? There are days of the week as well which correspond to different spells. For instance, Friday is for love, Venus, Monday. We've talked about this in our moon podcast, haven't we?
Yeah. Go check out season 1 if you haven't.
Think about colour work as well. So you think about your sacred herbs, each have meaning. We've talked about sage before, cleansing and purifying. You have lavender for relaxing. You have rosemary for protection.
We talked about that as well on the essential oils episode in season 2.
Rose for love, apples for love. You know, you've got specific ingredients which will help you direct this energy. Focus on your outcome. So when you're doing the ritual of whatever you're doing, it may be burning them. It may be mixing them together to make a spell jar. It may be making some sort of potion. It may be making some amulet or deity or thing to put on your altar. It is so broad spell work of whatever you're doing. Think about your outcome. Release that outcome into the universe of what you want. And this is where your words will come into play, or your chants. You know, Harry Potter has his book that he has to memorize all these like spells. That's essentially some truth. There's words in there. You're giving thanks to the universe for whatever you want this thing to do for you.
And can I just say, this is where I fall off the spell wagon, because I always resist anything where I feel like I have to chant something specific or say specific words.
Yeah.
And so now I'm getting that it's more about the intentions than the words.
Yeah.
Because I don't like I always feel weird when and no judgment, but for me, it feels kind of weird when you're doing a spell or doing some kind of ritual and you're reading off a bit of paper I'm dyslexic. I'm never going to memorize the words to chant without reading. But it's nice to hear you say that it's more about the intention. So maybe it's not like I need to chant a specific spell, right? No. Is that what you're saying?
People who are well practiced in this even write their own chants. They write like essentially beautiful poems that they can put out to the universe. But you can very simply just say, thank you for bringing me peace. But thank you for bringing me protection. Whatever it is, like you say, you don't have to make this complicated. It can be as simple or as advanced as you want it to be.
Well, I like it.
But you also have to, and here's another thing, once you've completed your spell, hold on to that belief that it's going to happen. And I hear so many people with crystals. I actually had a phone call with my friend last night talking to him about law of attraction. And I said, what is it that you wish for? And he's like, it's never going to come true. And I was like, well,
not with that attitude. It's not.
There's the problem, because you have to hold on to the belief that it is going to come true. Law of the cosmos is basically like energy attracts like energy. You get what you give. And so by putting your energy out there that this is going to happen, it attracts in what is going to happen. And it sounds really woo-woo, but there's another really famous episode of Derren Brown called Luck. And I think I've talked about this before. Puts a £20 note on the floor, and then he asks people who pick it up whether they deem themselves lucky or unlucky. And those that picked it up always said they were lucky, and those that missed it always said they were unlucky. But the breakdown of it is that the people that picked it up were out there believing it could happen. They were searching, they were open to stuff. And those that didn't pick it up were closed and not looking.
And if you're already saying, oh, it's not going to happen, you're basically all your life choices, all of your decisions, all of your attitude, your eyes are closed to the opportunity. You're going to, like you say, you're going to miss chances. You're not going to be working towards that thing actually happening because you already dismissed it. You're almost self-sabotaging.
Exactly. So be open to it, believe in it, and continue putting your energy into it. Now, there are so many fancy different names for different types of spells, which I'm not going to go into, mainly because I can't pronounce them, Dee, and because I feel like it's quite an advanced practice. And I wanted this episode to like be relatable to anyone. But essentially, like you can do spells for love, we talked about, for healing, for protection, to bring harmony into your life. You can do spells to break habits, to bring in abundance, money, or any of the other things like love. You can do spells for soul alignment, chakra clearing. There's not really much you can't do a spell for, but it's really important to plan your spell. Timing is everything. Make sure that you have the tools for your practice as well. One of the things I really recommend if you want to get into spell practice is get yourself a good spell book. If you're new to this practice, don't just start Googling loads of different ingredients and trying to make your own spell. Like that is really advanced practice, which comes with time and learning of what things
And
are.
you don't need everything right off the bat. You start small, get yourself a simple book, and then you can build on that. You can amend to suit your needs, to suit your intentions, to suit your ingredients that you have available. I mean, there's so many that I'm like, what the fuck even is that? I'm not even going to bother trying to find that. Or I look on, online and it's like, oh, well, that's fucking expensive. I'm just going to use a substitute.
So many levels of spell work here. So if you're new to the practice, just like you would with anything, just start off really, really basic. So many fancy equipment pieces you can have as well. Like we're selling cauldrons in the shop now for you to mix stuff in, pestle and mortars, wands. And you think, oh, fancy a wand, but it could be a crystal wand, something you're using to draw your symbols, direct your energy. A staff, it's called, isn't it, Day? In fancy witchy world, a staff, not a wand. Bells are a good thing you could use in your spell practice. Candles, we mentioned. Any powerful divination tools you might want to incorporate, such as pendulums, even your tarot deck. Why not? It's important as well when you're doing your spell to set up your space. So do it in like Dee mentioned. What was the word you used?
Sacred space.
Not a sacred space when you're talking about getting the tears of a virgin. A hygienic space. What was the fancy word you used?
I said sterilized, but that's because I was talking about extracting blood.
Oh, okay. We're far off the mark. Because if you're going to create a beautiful spell and you're redirecting energy, you don't want any contamination of either physical ingredients or energy from anywhere else. So make sure you're setting your space up to be clean, to be clear. This is where the idea of a witch's broom comes from. Like they're sweeping away physical mess, but also energy mess to clear, to make space for
Love it.
practice. Even plan, you'll love this, Dee, your outfit. Feel and look the part. You are the core ingredient of this spell. We just explained. So make yourself fancy. I mean, by all means, if you're comfortable and happy to do it in your PJs, go for it. But if you want to dig out your big fancy priestess dress and wear all your crystals, you are the key and very important ingredient into this practice. So look after yourself and make sure you feel the part too.
I love that. I love it.
Don't forget as well to call upon anything you feel you may need for protection, because you're opening yourself up into the energy world, spirits, other people's energy, influences from things unknown. So don't forget to call upon your protection before you conduct your spell.
And again, if you're not into your deities or your angels or anything like that, it can be simple like grounding meditation, that kind of thing, right?
Exactly. So crystals could be another one. Smudge face, or have some sage burning maybe while you're doing your spell. Conduct your spell and then close it. Basically it. And I said like some examples of spells that you may have done without realizing. Well, one of them is our moon circle. When we open the circle, we're setting intention, we're calling in the elements, and we cast the circle for protection. We're directing energy, protecting energy. If you ever go outside and charge your crystals under the moon, if you're washing them and then you're putting them outside and you're calling upon the energy of the moon to charge them, you're setting intentions on them, you're smudging them. Again, you're cleaning and redirecting energy.
I'm realizing as well, you know how I love a full moon bath, and so do you, right?
Yeah,
Maybe not during the summer months, but most of the other time. That my full moon bath is probably a spell.
yeah, because you're setting up a space, you're manifesting, you're clearing energy, you're setting an intention, you're using things like rose petals, you're lighting a candle, you're doing it at a specific time of the month as well, like for specific purpose, for specific
Yeah.
action. So yeah, definitely.
Oh, how fun.
And controversially, even a prayer. So even Christians who sadly fear spell work quite a lot, mainly because of the deities they believe it calls upon, maybe the devil. Although we did say in our last episode that Christianity and spirituality are joining now, so it's not as much feared. But even a Christian person who goes to church and prays, and I'm very sorry if this offends, but if you break it down, you're going to church, you are holding your hands together, you are praying to a deity, i.e., God, and requesting for a specific thing to happen. You're or giving.
Like, yeah. Or like we said in the last episode, like my gran, she used to pray, she used to have a different saint for every occasion, and she used to make prayers, she'd light a candle, you know what I mean, give an offering in church, whatever. Spell work, basically, right?
Yeah. It's just breaking down the perception. And you can understand through film, through media, the misunderstanding that only witches do spells and that spells are not practiced in religion, particularly Christianity, and spells involve a cauldron, but it is really not.
And that they're evil.
And that they're evil, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the other things, and Dee mentioned that we do in the shop are spell jar making kits, which are a really lovely practice. We have the jar and we give you all the ingredients and the instructions, even a breakdown of what the different days mean if you want to pick specific timing. We give you a coloured candle to mark. So, for instance, we have one for love, we have one for healing, one for confidence, and one for protection. The 4 key things. And so each kit has the ingredients in the form of herbs and crystals. It has a specific colour candle.
I'm going to put a link to the spell kits in the show note because they are so super cute. They are so cute.
I avoided spell practice in my shop for quite a while because I didn't quite get it. And because I was fearful and still have this belief that we all have a path in the world, and I don't like to tinker too much with what God has intended for me, and spell is redirecting energy to a specific outcome, which might not be in line with my path. So I worry that I'm changing my journey. But now I have this new understanding of spells and I'm breaking down my own boundaries of it, of what it constitutes and what's right for me. This is why I understood that spell work itself needs to be in the form of something that you make yourself. So my truth is, and I've seen many spiritual shops, and I'm not saying they're wrong, they have obviously a different way of doing it, but we don't sell spell jars that are ready made in our shop, because if I was to make a spell jar, putting an intention in there for love, and then someone bought it, I don't get how, having what we've just said about the key ingredient being you manifesting your purpose, how then you can take that jar with someone else's manifestation.
And it translates, yeah. I mean, I guess the intent, and I'm imagining the person doing this must be quite powerful. I don't know. I guess the intent they're putting in that jar is that the owner of that jar will attract love, for example.
But then it just feels so much more powerful if you make it yourself, because you can be more specific. Because what love?
Yeah.
Relationship love, family love, friendship love, self-love. What love?
Yeah.
I have a self-love jar on my shelf and it doesn't really do much for me. I have to say, I'm really sad because it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Whatever intent was put in there doesn't resonate.
Someone out there is loving themselves, but it ain't you. I can definitely see the advantage of making it yourself, because part of the, like you're saying, part of the spell is the preparation of it, that creation of it, the actual performing of it, and yourself, your intention.
Yeah.
Not just having the trinket at the end of it, right?
Yeah. Really. And also, I've just another little advertising recommendation, because we're making incense now as well. So burning loose incense, again, when I was studying this, I was burning incense in my garden. I was testing our temple incense that we made, or we made, and realised that that was a blend of herbs that had been made for specific intention, that I was setting up a place to burn it, to meditate to, and to study to. So it definitely was something that was put together to have specific outcome, and then the smoke was redirecting energy to create that outcome. So even burning incense, is a spell.
That's so funny, because I actually made a few more jars of our temple incense, link in the show notes. And because I knew we were going to be recording this episode later, I was thinking, this is a spell, because I was sitting there with all my ingredients. I like to do, you know how I am with my solfeggio music. I put on my music, I get in the headspace, I smudge the space, and I think about, you know, the people, I don't know the specific people, but I know our kind of audience and the people that come to our events and go into the shop and buy our products and whatever. And I think about them and I wish them well and happiness and all that kind of stuff as I'm making this. And I was like, it's a spell, right?
Yeah. Or at least the very start of making the ingredients for someone then to take home to finish the spell.
Oh, I like that.
Because they got the ingredients and the tools, and then they take it home and continue the final part of that spell's journey, which is the important bit as well. So you've given them the tools and the starting point of their journey.
Oh, I did part one. You guys take it from here.
Started it for you. But what I was going to say is that just a little advertising thing, that the incense, and we blended some others in the shop as well, one for confidence, the moon, for love, for healing, very similar to the spell jar themes actually. We got all of our ingredients from Star Child in Glastonbury. It's so important that they came from good source. So if you do need any ingredients, even the crazy ones, because even the most basic spell book has some ingredients where you're like, say what now? I had a man come in yesterday, he wanted orange, like, yeah, essential oil, oak, okay, I'm not quite sure how I can give you oak, and then something else. And it clearly came to me that he's read a spell book, and he, bless him, he didn't want to tell me it was from a spell book. There was almost like a little bit of fear, shame from it, but it clearly was a list of ingredients he was going to do some sort of spell for. And I directed him to Star Child, because for me, we went there, it's like Harry Potter's potion shop. You can tell a difference between good sourced, good stored ingredients from a good space. For me, it resonates. So
Star Child is the one with all the herbs and the spices behind the till, right?
Yeah, where you got your hay fever tonic from.
Oh my God, that was amazing. I mean, I think I just downed it because it tastes delicious, but it definitely worked as well. I'm going to post some pictures because I took some really nice pictures when we were actually there physically. So do they have an online shop? Well, that's dangerous for me to know.
All in like paper packaging, all labelled, really quick as well, really reasonable delivery. Obviously, we're making the incense to resell. So I was looking for wholesale source, but actually their prices are so reasonable that they couldn't even, they competed with wholesale prices.
Amazing.
So I was really happy. They do resins, they do weird and wacky ingredients that I couldn't even find anywhere else. So sadly, Twickenham doesn't generally have a shop that will sell your weird and wacky ingredients.
Oh, I care to differ.
Have you found somewhere secret, Dee?
Well, between your shop, obviously, and the new, fairly new shop, it's like a year or two old, on the high street called Mediterranean.
It's your pickle aisle, isn't it?
They have a whole pickle aisle, which I'm obsessed with, but also they have a lot of like the gums and the resins and the dried herbs and spices that at a much more reasonable price than other places. So I actually have been buying a lot of stuff from there. So if you are Twickenham based, check them out.
So going back to our spells, I did say I was going to tell you some
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Don't be adoring virtue. Is that going to be don't be adoring virtue.
Don't be adoring virtue about it.
So do not use your spell practice to manipulate others to get what you want. Surround yourself with good people, good energy, and good thoughts. So if you're in a space that's quite bad right now, maybe you're quite angry, jealous, hey, we're human. It's cool. Like, don't deny yourself of these feelings and don't punish yourself if you have them. If you are in a low vibe, my new thing, a low vibe space. I don't like to call it negative, low vibe. Probably induced by some fear, all these negative words we associate. Maybe not a good time to do a spell right now.
Do some meditation or counseling.
Yeah. So,
or what we would do, drinking. No. No,
definitely not those zombie things that you got from Wags and Tails.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm still recovering, and that was weeks ago. Love you, Wags and Tails, but that cocktail, I mean, the warning sign should have been that you're allowed maximum 2 per person. I've never seen that on a menu. Have you?
No, I haven't. It actually was such an interesting cocktail that I Googled it. It was a zombie, wasn't it? It's got like a history of a guy that made it for this other guy to recover from a hangover. And then he called it the zombie because it made you turn into a zombie for like a few days after. So interesting you say you haven't fully recovered, Dee, because that's why it's called the zombie.
Yeah, but I don't think that what happened in that cocktail was what was supposed to happen. I truly believe that guy, Ed, hi Ed, doubt he listens, but anyways, that he just put whatever fucking alcohol they had and just mixed it all up.
Did he do some spell work? I mean, as a cocktail maker, if he puts intent into that cocktail of getting us drunk, was that a bit of spell practice, Dee?
Well, it worked. And that brings us on to something that we're trying to incorporate. We're desperately trying, because we love a good drink. Drink responsibly, everyone. But we're trying to find a way of doing an event, aren't we, about either alcohol in spirituality, or like some kind of spiritual wine tasting, or maybe some kind of spiritual cocktail, maybe cocktail making a spell work. That would be fun. Wow. Ideas on a postcard, because we would love to have a workshop based around yummy drinks.
Yes, definitely. It's much needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did say to me when I went to the toilet, I think he had an afterthought of, maybe put a bit too much in there, because he said to us to be careful. And I think he was very relieved when we asked for it to take out, as much to say, sensible ladies, and also not my problem anymore, because they
I think it was more the latter, but yeah.
So this leads me on. This isn't saying that Ed did this to us. He was a very lovely, hospitable cocktail maker. Yeah. When you're doing your spell practice, do not harm anyone. Do not wish harm on anyone. We talked about it a bit in the ingredients as well, didn't we, Dee? But definitely do not use your spell work to manifest harm to anyone or anything.
This is our personal belief. Other people are okay with this, but we personally do not like that and would never encourage that.
Wow, I lead on to why I don't think anyone will come to that. So don't involve others without their consent. So yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Even when you're getting readings for the people, you can do readings for people without them being there, or you can ask a psychic to do a reading on their behalf, but you have to ask their consent, because it's just polite, if anything, isn't it?
Yeah, don't be a spiritual violator. Consent. We already said consent.
Violator. There's some really good slogans coming out of this one. Keep your spell work private. This should not be, ooh, look at me, I'm so fancy. I've got my fancy cauldron and my potions. I'm going to stand on stage and show you all how magnificent I am. This isn't a display to feed ego and to make you feel like you are better than others, to impress others, or to be famous. This isn't those intentions. Keep it private, keep it closed. And when you get the results of your spell work as well, this is where they say make a wish. When you're wishing on your birthday candles for something, or on a dandelion, and they say don't tell anyone because it won't come true.
Birthday candles. Fucking spell work since the dawn of your childhood.
All right, you're seeing it now, aren't you? You're getting it. But they say don't tell anyone because it won't come true. This is where this comes from. Like, keep it private, because once you've done your spell, if you start telling the world, you're deviating a bit from your intent. And then if it happens, it just feels wrong to brag about, hey, I did this spell to make lots of money and look at me now and my millions. It just feels a little bit like going against what the universe did for you. It's not meant to be an ego thing. It's not meant to be a bragging thing. It's definitely not meant to be that human thing that we do of associating our worth and our being here for material stuff. You know, our existence here, we're yet to figure out. Our drive is mainly by work, to buy pretty things, to buy the expensive cars so people can see success. So don't let spell work get you off that track, and don't brag about the success of it, basically. Protect nature and the environment, which we touched on as well, didn't we, Dee? Using animal products, plant products, make sure they're from good source.
I mean, like we also said, I would extend that to everything. Anything you buy, try to check the source of it, check the sustainability, check the labor conditions, etc., etc. That's just generally good practice.
So we mentioned hexes, and we mentioned that our truth is by following those rules. And so I'll just very quickly, to finish on something really light, not so light, I'm going to finish on hexes. True to your style, Dee, having the dark, murdery side.
Can I just clarify? I don't murder anyone. Give me out like I'm murdery.
Honestly, Dee's interest in murder is shocking, because she's one of the nicest people and least likely people to murder anyone or anything. It just goes complete opposite. You're frowny.
Well, like, I often question whether I could murder someone. Obviously, in self-defense or in the defense of others, in a heartbeat, I would kill someone. But yeah, you're right. In no other context can I imagine myself murdering someone. But I think it's an anxiety thing. It's part of my way of coping, because I like to know worst case scenarios and plan for them. It's not bad, isn't it? So, hexes.
Curses and hexes, are they the same? What are they? A curse is wishing bad on someone. We talked about how it's a naughty thing to do in spell practice, but some people do curse. So they will deliberately wish ill on someone. I know in arguments or in situations, you may say something ill towards someone just in the heat of the moment. It constitutes a curse. And whether you're there with all of your potions, mixing them up to actually wish harm on someone, or whether you're literally just in the heat of the moment directing energy towards a person and wishing them bad. And it can come also from a place of unconsciousness as well. Like if you're envious or jealous of a person, you may wish them less success. There's an example of, I know we're all sitting here going, no, I'd never do that. I would never wish someone
it's
bad.
Human.
But actually, we all have capacity to do it.
But what you're saying is there's premeditated curses and non-premeditated curses.
Yes. But essentially, if we go back to what is a spell, it's the redirection of energy towards a specific outcome. So if you're wishing someone through, I don't know, like I say, a space of jealousy, and you're wishing them non-success, you're putting energy towards someone's non-success. Technically, it sounds horrible, but it is cursing. It is. And so I just want to break down, it's probably more common than you think. You don't need to cross the path of like a naughty witch. So if that happens, or if you're feeling, often I get it, people coming in and feeling they're around negative people, or people wish, especially in workspace, you know, when you're in a competitive environment, people are not wishing you success if they want the same job as you.
And around people that you don't choose to be around.
Exactly. Or neighbours as well, you know. So is it possible that someone can curse you, ill wish you, and that's to happen? And my truth on this is only if you let it. So energy like attracts like, and this is why in the last episode of Adoring Virtue, you can tell I've been studying it of like, don't do like attracts like, don't match it. If you direct your energy into something, i.e. if someone's ill-wished you and you wish to portray it back to them, you're literally matching them, and you're putting your energy into them, they're putting your energy into you, you're opening yourself up to it. The universe is like, hey, what's going on here? Okay, this is going to happen. By just turning your back on it and not opening up to it, i.e. don't believe in it. Don't even put your energy into it. Don't even question it. Close it down. But my truth personally is that even if someone did a full-blown curse on you, it will only come true and happen if you allow it to.
What's the saying? If you think you're cursed, then you are.
Yes, exactly. Only things can affect you and your energy and your life if you allow them to and choose to let them. And always remember that through any of these horrible, dark things that go on out there.
I always do remember that because of you. And one of the reasons why I love you so much and why you are so dear to me is because I feel like you make me a better person for this reason, because you remind me about this regularly. And I remember a couple of years ago, during the beginning of lockdown, I had a really horrible interaction with my neighbor. Do you remember? She was yelling at me. It's not a neighbor I ever knew before. She lives down the side road. Never spoken to her or anything. And she was yelling at me because I had parked my car in front of her house. And it had been there for like a week or two. We were on lockdown. And she was really angry because I parked in front of her house. And we have free parking all around, and not very, like, parking is annoying in my street, but people regularly park in front of my house. There's no restrictions on where you can park. And sometimes you have to park in front of someone else's house or down the street or whatever. So she was really angry because I parked in front of her house for a week or two, came out of her house yelling and screaming at me that I was inconsiderate. Why haven't I moved it? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember telling you, because like it really upset me, because obviously I'm looking at her house now out the window. I can see her house from my back door. I could see it from when I'm sitting at work. And you were like, just send her love and light. And so now I do that. Whenever I open my back door to go to my office, which is in my converted garage, I look at her house and I think, you're an asshole, but I send you love and light.
You're realistic about it.
And I feel like that does help me, because she doesn't know whether I'm sending love or light or hatred, but I do. So if I opened that door every morning, saw her house and got angry, then who's the one that's suffering? It's me, right?
You're matching her energy and you're giving her energy of likeness. So yeah, I learned that saying in Zen Love as well for a very similar scenario. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, this person is blah, 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 blah. I can't send her love because she's wrong. She's wrong. She's been horrible to me. I can't do it right now. Because let's be realistic. Like, when you do this, you've got to genuinely, you can't just say it just to tick it off that you've done it if you're still like,
yeah, if you don't really send the love, don't say you're sending the love.
A lot of people do, though. They think it counts.
That's why I had to amend my mantra.
You're being true to honesty. Yeah.
Yeah. Still don't like you, but wish you the best.
Send you indifference. Isn't that what we say? Like, send you nothing.
Yeah. Even that's better than a curse, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then I carried on reading about hexes, because hex, to me, felt like a scarier word than curse.
Yeah. I mean, hex in, like, for example, a lot of languages is actually the word for witch.
Right.
Yeah. Like in Flemish, I'm half Belgian. In Flemish, hex is what we call a witch.
So the association with this word has, like, somehow in time again transitioned to be scary, a bit like the word witch, misinterpreted, and even we said curses and hexes like they're the same thing, but they're not. So a hex actually translates to banish, and a lot of advanced witches who do spell practice will openly, even good magic, will use hexes to banish stuff in forms of light, to get rid of negative energy. Cutting the ties of a person or something that no longer serves you is to banish, it's to hex. So technically a hex is a type of spell which is to remove something. So it's not necessarily bad, but however, it's probably one of the most advanced spell work practices that you can do. And something of all the spell practices which you have to know what you're doing and think very carefully and tread very lightly as to whether you're going to do it right without inflicting, say it's a person you're breaking cords with. What is the difference between banishing them or actually wishing? You know, there is a very, very thin line. And before a hex is done by a professional, and I do recommend it's only done by professionals, they will even take a few weeks, days, hours to really question why the hex is being done. Because negative things are given to you for a reason. Negative people, environments, jobs, houses. And to remove that negative situation, i.e. perform a hex, it's a really good question to ask. Is it the situation itself which I need to remove? Or is it, and this is where it gets really complicated, like some deep internal shadow work going on here, Is it the person or is it my feelings of this person? Because they're very different. Is it the house that I need to remove, or is it my fear of the house? They're very different. And so there's so many layers of why something needs to be removed or a hex performed. So most scenarios, it's not the thing that you want to remove, it is your fear.
Reaction. Yeah.
And that's where it can cross lines very, very quickly, and it gets very complicated. So always, if you need to banish, think carefully about how, and I would say get an expert.
Don't start with hexes if you're new to spell work, is what you're saying.
You know, removing low vibe, negative spirit, you know, it's a professional thing which should be taken seriously. And a hex, I would say, in the spiritual world is seek professional guidance.
Yeah, that's some intense shit there.
And so always remember, in spiritual practice, particularly with spell work, the rule of 3. Whatever you put out is returned back to you 3 times. So if you do want to put out something bad, i.e. a curse, and we say you do what you want, know that it will bounce back on your ass 3 times as bad. So ask yourself, is it worth it?
Can I ask, because this is something I'm confused about, is that rule of 3 specifically a Wiccan thing, or is that just generally in spiritual belief?
I think it transitions across spiritual belief, but I think it's pagan orientated, witch orientated. I'm not quite sure if it's in the Wiccan book, because when I was studying this, I've not been reading any Wiccan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, that idea of you get back what you send out there translates across cultures, religions, everything. Karma, rule of 3, law of attraction.
Decided 3, that might be Wiccan. You know, why they decided exactly 3-fold, I don't know. Like exactly 3 times. No, why not twice? I don't. That's something to study for next time. But the key thing to know is, and I actually suspect that someone has been ill-wishing bad on me for quite a while, and sadly I opened myself up to it. Not always easy to practice what you preach, and I'm like, look, thinking of her name a lot, you know who I mean, we got smudged against her in Glastonbury. I think she's had very ill-wished intentions towards my shop for a long time, and bad stuff's been happening because I've been opening up to it and allowing that and acknowledging it and feeling that she's been doing it instead of turning my back and sending love. So not always easy to turn your back.
Oh, you need to say my mantra. I still think you're an asshole, but I send you love and light.
Working on it, Day. But the very interesting thing on this is that sadly I wasn't able to do that. I can't help myself sometimes. I'm like, what's she doing on Instagram? You know, I've not turned my back fully onto this energy, and I'm working on it. Is that I recently learned that she's having some sort of breakdown and got some sort of problem. Her business is not going in the most positive light itself. And the first thing I thought of was rule of 3. Whatever you've wished bad on me, I can clearly see now has passed, and it's bouncing back on your ass. Not through me, because I promise you I have not wished.
I was going to say, did you hex her?
I promise you, I actually feel very sad for her and slightly concerned. But I can see how someone who has gone from a very high, well-known figure working in this industry to crashing very sadly. And so if you ever question the rule of 3, I'm like, is this it?
Beep, beep, beep is the prime example. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Dee? Maybe?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that this is what I agree with. You send that negativity out, you're attracting it. You're more open to it. You're seeing it in more places. You're opening the door for it to come into your life. So whether you believe in karma, whether you believe in the rule of 3, whether you believe that you get back what you put out there, they all are pretty much saying the same thing. You're operating on that level, that low vibration. So you're attracting it or whatever. Whereas when you're only sending out positive, looking at positive experiences, and we are not talking about being positive all the time. That is not what we're talking about. That is toxic positivity, and we are not okay with that. But if you are sending out positive thoughts to people rather than hurtful thoughts, hateful thoughts. You are noticing the positive the more than if you're picking up on all the hatred.
This made me smile because it's making me think of like the War of the Witches, of like, where would it end? I can't think of what film it is where there's witches and they're just like all firing spells at each other, and in the end they just all destroy each other. Like, you know, one of them loses their head and there's all sorts of bad stuff that happens, and it's like, where does it end before you just completely destroy each other? So in this cycle of events, very important for me now, as much as like the ill wishes of her have like caused me harm, to this break this chain and try and come meditate and come from a space of like sending her love to end this chain, because otherwise it will be reciprocated and it will bounce back on my ass, and you've got yourself like this boomerang energy where we will eventually, it's making me smile just the thought of the War of the Witches between us. I think it was film.
I don't remember, but yeah, like you said, you're thinking about her. You're talking about her now. And, you know, and it's great content for a podcast, but it's a waste of your energy when you could be doing something much more beneficial to you, right? And so in that way, this is what we're saying. If you think you're cursed, you're cursed.
You're putting your energy into it.
It can take time to get to that place. We're not fucking angels who can instantly someone hurts us and we go, oh, I'm going to send you love and light. Like, no, we need to process that fucking shit before we can get to that point. Why did they do that to us? Why, you know what I mean? Like, you can invest some energy in it to understand it. And then you've got to make sure it doesn't drag you down for long, basically.
Let it go when you're ready to let it go, and make sure you let it go good and proper.
Because we're not just letting people off the hook here. Oh, you treat me like shit and I'm going to be like, I'm going to send you love and light. Like, no. But you got to understand, are they doing something wrong? Am I allowing it? Am I tolerating it? What can I do? How can I get out of this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's all, I'm using this phrase a lot, but it's all soul growth. So it's all these good experiences and bad experiences. They add to your understanding, which eventually helped me become that wise old woman with my opened crown chakra sitting on top of a mountain, understanding our existence.
The goal. Always asking, what can I learn from this?
Totally. Everything on Spellwork, Dee.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to go and do a spell later. I decided I'm going to consciously do one where I'm like, I'm doing a spell now. Because I realized from this episode, I do a lot of spells, but I never think this is a spell now.
Oh, it makes me happy that we've broken down some barriers for both of us, actually.
Yeah.
And we will be doing as well a workshop on this practice. So if you're local, please check that out. We've got a spell casting, spell jar workshop.
So excited. I love our workshops.
Me too, because they teach us things too.
Yeah, but also because we sat down when we make our event schedule, we always sit down and we think, what event would we like to go to? What would we love? And I hope people will agree that we put so much into them. We put so much time and preparation, materials, thought, everything into them because they are a little bit of a passion project for us. And as is the entire Goddess Temple Twickenham. Yeah, if you could join us, come along. We would love to see you there. Tracey, thank you so much. We've got you coming back later on in the season for 2 more episodes, so can't wait. Thank you for listening. Have fun. Happy spell casting. Bye.
Bye.
We Know the Moon is the official podcast for the Goddess Temple Twickenham. Don't forget, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. You can also visit our website, weknowthemoon.co.uk, for all of our upcoming events and merch. If you sign up for any amount on our Patreon, you'll be able to watch our video recordings of our podcast from season 4 onwards, with all the raw bits. That usually means more swearing. Thanks for listening.